This is a Memorial Day prayer written by the Reverend Barbara Paskin. Spirit of life, whom we have called by many names in thanksgiving and in anguish, bless the poets and those who mourned. Send peace for the soldiers who did not make the wars, but whose lives were consumed by them. Let strong trees grow above the graves far from home. Breathe through the arm of their branches. The earth will swallow your tears while the dead sing, no more, never again. Remember me. For the wounded ones and those who received them back, let there be someone ready when the memories come, when the scars pull and the buried metal moves, and forgiveness for those of us who were not there for our ignorance. And in us, veterans in a forest of 1,000 fallen promises, let new leaves of protest grow on our stumps. Give us courage to answer the city of humanity's pain, and with our bare hands, out of full hearts, with our own intelligence, let us create peace. Amen, and blessed be. It is entitled, You Have to Be Carefully Taught. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed into your little dear ears. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. Yes, you've got to be carefully taught. Here ends the first reading. As I've often stated, I got my first introduction into this Unitarian Universalist meeting house of Provincetown by standing over there, I think it was, and being a sign language interpreter. So I want to teach you some signs right now. Perhaps I've done this before. I want to teach you the sign for give. So you take, if you're right hand, take your right hand. If you're left hand, take your left hand. Close the palm. Bring it to you. To give. To give. And to receive. To receive. To give and to receive. To give and to receive. This creates for me what I call a cycle of giving and sharing. And that's the energy oftentimes I call God. Second reading this morning is taken from the book Hate Hurts, put out by the Anti-Defamation League. It's a chapter on race. Growing up in the early 50s meant that I could go see certain movie theaters that had traditionally admitted only whites, forced to open their doors to everyone. When I was 12 years old, dressed in a new outfit I had worn for Easter, and feeling very pretty, I took the streetcar by myself to the theater downtown. Just before it was time for the theater to open, an usher came out and asked us all to form a line. People just kind of merged together. And suddenly I heard a group of women in back of me talking. This little darky wasn't in front of us. She doesn't belong here. With that, I was thrown out of line. I started to cry. I had never been called a darky before, and I couldn't recall ever being treated so meanly. By the time I got home, I was feeling pretty miserable. I couldn't understand why I had been called that name. My mom had me sit very close to her, and she put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, Sometimes people who don't know other people, who look different from them, just decide to dislike them. This action is called prejudice. It is wrong to form an opinion of someone based solely on what you see. You must try to get to know the person before you say whether you like him or her. Certainly the color of one's skin has nothing to do with what's in one's heart. I know you feel hurt, but you must not hate. Hate is not good for anyone. Remember to take a journey. Try to see as far as you can into a person's heart, to see all the good that you can. Here ends our second reading. Historians can't seem to agree on who exactly invented the kite. Some say it was invented by a Greek named Archetius about 400 BC. Others believe it was invented 200 years later by Hassin, a Chinese general. We know that the making and flying of kites have been popular pastimes in China, Japan, Korea, and other countries in the Far East for hundreds and hundreds of years. In China, the 9th day of the 9th month is known as Kite's Day, or the Festival of the Ascending on High. It is on this day, while living in the Republic of Singapore, that I first witnessed the overwhelming beauty of a kite-filled sky. The true beauty of a kite is often best noted when it stands alone against the blue backdrop of the heavens. However, on the day of the festival of the Ascending on High, I discovered the truth to the phrase that sometimes more is better. Approaching the park by Raffles Hotel, there against the backdrop of the Singaporean skyline, was indeed a kite-filled sky. There were kites of all varying sizes and shapes. There were plain-colored kites and multicolored kites. There were box kites, bird kites, flat kites, figured kites, animal kites, people kites, dragon kites, and cartoon kites. As I wandered about, I overheard a visitor comment to his Singaporean friend, "I've never seen so many different kind of kites." To which the Singaporean gentleman replied, "Kites like people lah, different. Kites and people. Varied, colorful, complex, different." I wrote that statement down. Kites are like people lah, different. In Singlish, in Singapore, they would always have la at the end of a sentence. It was fascinating. And it stayed with me ever since that. So you never know what kind of things you're going to find of interesting, so I write that down. And the metaphor is perfect for today's sermon, kites and people. But it's not the kites that I really want to talk up to you today. Not that I have anything against kites. I love kites. Kites are beautiful, historical, practical, and fun. Again, kind of like people. But the core message for today I overheard in all places in a kite store. Now I know you may be thinking, what do ministers do? Walk around all day and eavesdrop on other people's conversations? And then write them down to use as a sermon? Well, sometimes yes. For this is the very material of life. On this occasion, I was in a kite store in suburban Connecticut, just kind of browsing, and there was a mother and her son looking at varied kites. "What about the bird kite, David?" the mother asked. "No, I hate bird kites," came the reply. "Okay, how about this big box kite then?" "No, I hate box kites." "Well, oh look, there's this beautiful dragon kite, look." "No, I hate dragons." And the conversation continued along that same line until Mom and David left the store. The phrase, "I hate box kites," again stuck in my head. And yes, I did indeed write it down. For you see, I've never placed the word hate and kites in the same sentence. How do you possibly hate a kite? For you see, the message today, my friends, is not about the kites, boxed, dragoned, or birded. It's not about the kites. It's about the hate. How and when or where do we learn to hate? Where or when did David decide he hated box kites? Now, I know this was probably not what he had meant to say. Clearly, young David did not want to own a box kite, a bird kite, a dragon kite, or any kite, for that matter, on this particular day. But how and where and when did he learn the word hate? I recall right after President John Kennedy was assassinated, showing my age here, we were sent home from school quite early. I remember two comments from this day. The first by a fellow classmate, Karen Hess, who yelled out, and please pardon my language here, "Good, the nigger lover is dead." Where does a sixth grader learn such statements? And I remember my mother's comment as we got home, "I never want to hear you say the word hate again." Clearly, as our reading from Rodgers and Hammerstein musical suggested, we are taught to hate. Unfortunately, my young sixth grade classmate more likely heard that awful hate-filled phrase from someone in her house. Yes, we have to be carefully taught. Now, growing up in my house, we were spared some of that education. My mother's family was of Irish Catholic descent from Boston. She often told us when looking for jobs and coming across signs in the store windows that read, "No Irish Catholic need apply." Her family had been on the receiving end of hate, prejudice, and discrimination. She was not going to teach that to her children. My father's ancestry was Swedish Protestant. His father disowned him when he married my mother, an Irish Catholic. I never met my grandfather. He would leave the house when we would come to visit. My father was not going to teach that to his children. And yet, growing up in our house, we were taught just subtle messages of prejudice. I was taught that if you didn't go to college, my father viewed you with less worth and dignity. He was, and he admitted this, an educational elitist. I was taught that we practiced the one true religion, Catholicism, and all others were doomed to the fires of hell. I was taught that boys played Little League, football, and basketball, and if you didn't, well, then you weren't a real boy. You've got to be carefully taught to hate and fear. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ears. You've got to be taught to hate. And the teaching begins at a very early age. Children learn about differences very young. Research shows by the age of 2, they were aware of differences around gender and are able to begin asking questions. Why do boys stand up to pee and girls have to sit down? Is pink just a girl's color? Can boys play with dolls? By the ages of 3 to 5, they begin to interact and to questions of other people. Why is your skin brown? Will I change color when I grow up? When I wear pants, am I a boy? By the time they reach 6 to 8 years of age, they are fully exposed to the world outside of their family and their neighborhood. They have developed more of a sense of their own self-image and self-worth. They are beginning to have a larger sense of history and human diversity. By the age of 8, they are able to say, we don't have a Christmas tree because we're Jewish. Yet even when all these chronological ages of development are understood, children still react to some differences with deviance and discrimination. There's a story of Jenny. She described herself as a brown-skinned girl, a mixture of Spanish, Japanese, and Filipino, born in San Francisco. When she started kindergarten, her family lived right in the city, and all of her classmates were all different colors and different cultures, and they all got along. In first grade, she moved to the suburbs, and suddenly everyone was white. The kids in my class started teasing me and kept asking me what I was, recalled Jenny. Finally, I asked my mom, "What am I?" My mom said, "You're a cosmopolitan, a person of the world." Jenny returned to school and told her classmates, "I'm a cosmopolitan. That means I'm a person of the world." My classmates were so impressed that I knew such a big word, number one. They stopped teasing me and started treating me with respect. Maybe they wanted to be cosmopolitan too. And sometimes maybe that's all it takes, a simple explanation to stop the teasing. Other times it may take a more deliberate discourse. I am sure all of us sitting here can recall some time in our lives when ethnic, cultural, or religious differences may have seemed insurmountable. Whether they came from our own past experiences or the ones raised by our children, each and every one of us has had to come face to face with the feelings of hate. How do we respond? How do we respond to our own carefully taught lessons of hate? How do we respond when we are the recipients of others' hatred? How do we look into the hurt eyes of our children and explain to them why they can't go to a friend's party because of the color of their skin or their religious beliefs? How do we listen from our own church chairs responsibly and respectively to messages we may think are too Christian? How do we do all of these and still not teach intolerance, bigotry, and hatred? How do we tolerate intolerance? How do we respond to hate? Václav Havel, the former president of the Czech Republic, in speaking about his time in prison and hatred he felt from the warden, was asked, "Did you feel any desire to repay hate with hate?" Havel answered, "I'm not capable of really hating. Sometimes there are people who bother me, who drive me a bit crazy, but I don't remember out-and-out hatred. My entire life, I've never experienced that, because hatred, among other things, doesn't allow you to see the world clearly and objectively." And to me, this is the answer. Hatred does not allow us to see the world and all the people in it clearly and respectively. If we view the world through the eyes of hatred and prejudice, our sight is tainted, our view disrupted, our horizon is altered. What was once a landscape of diversity and strength, we now see only adversaries, problems, and prejudice. How do we regain our clarity or our sight? How do we unlearn those messages we may have been taught so not to pass them on to our children? How do we replace hatred with hope? And perhaps this is why we gather each and every Sunday. Perhaps this is why the UU Meeting House of Providence thrives, because we are a place that wants to replace hatred with hope. We are a community that believes we do not all have to think alike to love alike. And yet we too face challenges. How many times have we heard the phrase, "Oh, that's too Christian for me," uttered in this sanctuary? How many times have you heard the talk of those fundamental Christians? What messages are we sending to the Christians among us and our own children when we say such things? Where is the hope in the statements like that? Are we not showing our own short-sightedness and prejudices with such statements? This, my friends, remains our spiritual task as we go about the work of building and growing the beloved community here at the tip of Cape Cod. It is wrong, stated our mom in this morning's reading, to form an opinion of someone based solely on what you see or what you hear. You must not hate. Remember to take that journey. Try to see as far as you can into a person's heart, to see all the good you can. This is part of our journey as well. As Unitarian Universalists, our first principles echoes the thought. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. To promote is a verb. It requires action. It asks us to take up that journey, to go on the journey into a person's heart to see all the good that we can. Now that may be a very, very long journey. But as with any journey, it begins by taking the first step. In this case, the first step is not seeing the person as the other. Oh, they're Christian. Oh, they're Jewish. They're gay. They're elderly. They're Hispanic. Asian. Oh, they're Republican. Oh, they're the tourist. No, they're all human beings. Yes, even Republicans are human beings. Created as we all are, created with dreams and hopes and wishes and fears, frustrations and joys. They are our brothers and our sisters. That is where the hope lives. So how do we get to this place of hope? First, by education. We educate ourselves and our children on the strength of diversity. We offer religious exploration curriculums for all ages. We teach respect and acceptance of the world's religions. And we tell the story of our own unique and rich Unitarian Universalist history and theologies. And we continue the work begun by Pastor Brenda for racial justice and equality as we have to examine our own personal and institutional structures of racism and create and initiate systems and methods to dismantle them. We find our voice and we speak our truth when religious and ethnic, sexist, and homophobic jokes offered. We speak our truth and let people know their hateful and hurtful thoughts and behaviors offend us. We speak our truth when at meetings are called to order by a prayer that excludes our faiths. We educate by using our inclusive language, our accepting minds, and our liberal theology. We take the risk and we speak our truth. Yet we speak it in love, not offering hate for hate, not offering superiority over spiritual authority, rather offering education and knowledge to dispel the fears and find our common humanity. We combat hatred and prejudice not with power, but with our principles. We live our principles. By the example of our living, we become part of the solution and not part of the problem. We give them not hell, but hope. courage. It is my hope for this congregation that we may become a no place for hate community. There is much work that needs to be done to begin to live out of our dream of a world free of hatred, discrimination, and prejudice. Some may see it as impossible. I see it as imperative. May we take the first step today and commit ourselves to a resolution of respect. In your order of service, you will find an insert. I invite you to take that out, and we stand together as we commit our congregation to being a hate-free zone. Can we all rise and recite this together, please? Rise as you are willing and able. I pledge from this day forward to do my best to combat prejudice and to stop those who, because of hatred or ignorance, would hurt anyone or violate their civil rights. I will try at all times to be aware of my own biases and seek to gain understanding of those who I perceive as being different from myself. I will speak out against all forms of prejudice and discrimination. I will reach out to support those who are targets of hate. I will think about specific ways my community members can promote respect for people and create a prejudice-free zone. I firmly believe that one person can make a difference and that no person can be an innocent bystander when it comes to opposing hate. I recognize that respecting individual dignity, achieving equality, and promoting intergroup harmony are the responsibilities of all people. By signing this pledge, I commit myself to creating. Please be seated. My friends, we have begun that journey. Like a rock, may our commitment be firm. Like the wind, may our compassion spread, and like a kite, may our courage continue to soar. We are the future of this world, and we absolutely can and must make a difference. Blessed be.